Ladies and gentlemen, inside each of us lives a truth we often try to ignore, a hidden side, a side we push away, bury, or deny. This hidden part is called the shadow. It is made up of our fears, our doubts, our anger, our envy, and every impulse we are ashamed to admit. But here lies the paradox. The more we deny the shadow, the more power it has over us. Think of it like this: what we resist persists. Every time you suppress a part of yourself, it does not disappear, it only grows in the dark. It influences your choices, your relationships, and your future, without you even realizing it. That is why embracing your shadow is not an act of weakness. It is an act of strength and courage. To embrace the shadow is to look within and say, "Yes, this too is me." It does not mean acting out your darkness. It does not mean becoming your anger or surrendering to your fears. It means acknowledging that these elements exist and then transforming them into sources of wisdom and growth. When you embrace your shadow, you reclaim your power. The anger you once hid can become the fire that fuels your ambition. The fear you once denied can sharpen your instincts and make you cautious in moments that require care. Even envy, when understood, can guide you toward the life you truly desire. The shadow is not your enemy. It is your teacher. It shows you what you have avoided, what you have left unfinished, and what you still must confront. Without it, you cannot become whole. So the question is not, do I have a shadow? The question is, will I face it? Embracing your shadow self is the path to real freedom. It allows you to stop pretending, stop hiding, and start living as a complete human being. Light is meaningless without darkness. Strength is born only after we face our weakness. So dare to look within. Dare to meet the parts of yourself you've avoided for too long. For when you walk through the darkness, you do not lose yourself, you finally discover who you truly are. Every human being carries within themselves a hidden side, a part of the personality that is rarely shown to the world. It is not the polished image we present to others, nor the role we play in society, but something much deeper. This hidden dimension is often called the shadow, and it exists in every single person, regardless of who they are or where they come from. To understand the shadow is to understand that no one is entirely light or entirely darkness. Each of us is a mixture of both, and it is this mixture that makes us whole. The shadow contains all the parts of ourselves that we repress, deny, or try to escape from. It is where we hide our anger, our jealousy, our selfishness, and even our deepest fears. But it is not only made up of so-called negative traits. Sometimes the shadow also holds our unlived potential, talents we are too afraid to express, desires we do not dare to pursue, and truths about ourselves that we bury because they do not fit with who we believe we should be. When we think of the shadow, we often imagine only darkness, but in reality, it is a vast reservoir of human experience, some painful, some powerful, and all of it real. From childhood, we are taught which parts of ourselves are acceptable and which are not. A child who shows anger may be told that it is wrong to feel that way. A child who dreams too boldly may be told to be realistic. Slowly, piece by piece, we learn to hide away aspects of ourselves in order to be loved, accepted, or approved of. Over time, these disowned parts do not vanish. They sink into the unconscious and form the shadow. As adults, we may believe we have outgrown these early lessons, but in truth, they continue to live inside us, shaping our behavior in ways we do not fully realize. Consider how often people are shocked by their own reactions. A person may find themselves suddenly enraged at a small comment, or deeply jealous of someone else's success, or afraid of situations that hold no real threat. These emotions seem to appear out of nowhere, but in reality, they are the voice of the shadow trying to be heard. The more we attempt to silence it, the louder it becomes. To deny the shadow is to deny our own humanity, because no one is free from feelings of fear, anger, envy, or doubt. The only difference between a person who grows and a person who remains stuck is whether they are willing to face these hidden truths. Acknowledging the shadow is not about condemning ourselves or drowning in guilt. On the contrary, it is about compassion. To say the shadow exists in me is to recognize that imperfection is part of being human. Everyone carries anger, everyone carries fear, everyone carries wounds they do not want to expose. The moment you realize this, a new kind of freedom opens up. You no longer have to pretend to be flawless, and you no longer have to exhaust yourself in hiding. Instead, you can begin the deeper work of integration, the process of uniting both your light and your darkness into one complete whole. It is important to understand that the shadow does not make you evil. What makes the shadow dangerous is not its existence, but your refusal to see it. When ignored, the shadow slips into your life through projection. This means you may begin to see in others the very traits you reject in yourself. A person who has buried their own selfishness may accuse others of being selfish at every turn. A person who has denied their own fear may label others as cowards. In this way, the shadow continues to influence life from the background, quietly shaping actions, choices, and relationships. But once you acknowledge it, you regain the ability to choose consciously rather than unconsciously. The shadow also carries immense potential. Within the qualities you dislike about yourself lies hidden energy that can be transformed. Anger, once understood, can become courage and passion. Fear, once acknowledged, can become awareness and wisdom. Even jealousy, when embraced, can reveal to you what you truly value and desire. What was once a source of shame becomes a source of power, and what once held you back becomes the very force that moves you forward. The shadow, then, is not only a place of darkness, but also a well of possibility, waiting to be drawn upon. The truth is simple but profound. Everyone has a shadow. To deny this is to remain incomplete. To accept it is to begin the journey toward wholeness. When you look honestly at yourself and admit that you too have hidden fears, secret desires, and unspoken doubts, you step into authenticity. You stop comparing yourself to an illusion of perfection and instead embrace the reality of being human. From this place of honesty, real growth can occur. It takes courage to look at the parts of yourself you have been taught to hide. It takes strength to admit that within you lives not only light but also shadow. But this courage and strength are exactly what lead to transformation. For in the end, the shadow is not there to destroy you. It is there to complete you. By facing it, you step into the fullness of your being. By embracing it, you discover that even the darkest parts of yourself hold the seeds of light. And so the journey begins with a simple truth. The shadow exists in everyone. You cannot run from it, and you cannot destroy it, but you can face it. You can embrace it, and in doing so, you will discover not only the depths of who you are, but also the heights of who you can become. Life has a way of reminding us of the truths we try hardest to avoid. The very things we run from are often the things that show up again and again, knocking on the door of our experience. This is why it is said that what we resist persists. Resistance does not eliminate a problem, a fear, or a weakness. It only strengthens its hold on us. When we push something into the dark corners of our mind, it does not vanish. It waits. It grows. It finds subtle ways to influence our lives until we finally face it. Think about fear. When you are afraid of failure and resist acknowledging it, that fear begins to quietly dictate every choice you make. You may avoid opportunities, sabotage your own progress, or settle for less than you are capable of achieving. Outwardly, you appear in control, but inwardly, fear is running the show. The harder you deny its presence, the stronger its grip becomes. In the same way, anger that is resisted does not dissolve, it simmers beneath the surface. One day, often unexpectedly, it explodes at the smallest provocation, leaving you shocked at your own reaction. This is the persistence of what is not faced. The shadow side of the human psyche works in the same way. Every time we resist our darker impulses, every time we deny our envy, our bitterness, or our insecurity, those emotions do not disappear. They find ways to express themselves indirectly, through passive aggression, through criticism of others, or through constant dissatisfaction. You may notice yourself irritated by small things or projecting blame onto people around you, but beneath all of it lies the truth you have resisted. This is why unresolved emotions always return. They seek recognition. They demand to be seen. Resistance is like trying to hold a ball underwater. The harder you push it down, the stronger it pushes back. You may succeed for a while, but eventually it bursts through the surface with force. In the same way, the emotions, memories, and impulses that we suppress eventually break through. They appear in our dreams, in sudden outbursts, in unhealthy habits, and even in the way we view the world. Life continues to present these hidden parts of us until we acknowledge them. The persistence of what we resist is not punishment, it is an invitation. It is life's way of urging us toward wholeness. If anger keeps returning, it is asking to be understood. If fear follows you, it is asking to be faced. If jealousy rises again and again, it is pointing you toward a desire you have not yet dared to honor. Every repeated pattern is a message. Every recurring struggle is a signpost. The problem is not that these feelings exist. The problem is that we refuse to listen to them. Many people believe that resisting unpleasant feelings is a form of strength. They imagine that burying their emotions or denying their shadow makes them tougher or more disciplined. But in truth, resistance is not strength. It is fear in disguise. Real strength lies in the ability to sit with discomfort, to acknowledge what is painful without running away. When you stop resisting, you stop giving your shadow control. You stop feeding the cycle of persistence. Consider relationships. How often do people find themselves repeating the same conflicts again and again with different partners? It is not because fate is cruel, but because unresolved parts of the self are seeking expression. If someone resists facing their insecurity, they may repeatedly attract situations that trigger jealousy. If someone denies their own need for respect, they may repeatedly find themselves in relationships where they are undervalued. The lesson persists until it is learned. The pattern repeats until the shadow is embraced. This truth extends beyond personal life and into society. Entire cultures resist uncomfortable realities, prejudice, injustice, violence, and as long as they are denied, these problems persist across generations. What is repressed collectively eventually erupts in collective conflict. Just as with the individual, what society resists does not disappear. It grows stronger, waiting for the moment to return. The path to healing is the same: acknowledgement, confrontation, and transformation. When you finally stop resisting, something extraordinary happens. The energy you once spent fighting yourself becomes available for growth. The fear that haunted you becomes a teacher. The anger that consumed you becomes fuel for change. The jealousy that poisoned you reveals the life you truly long for. By facing what persists, you free yourself from its control. What once felt like an enemy becomes a guide. To understand that what we resist persists is to understand the importance of acceptance. Acceptance does not mean surrendering to every impulse or acting out every emotion. It means saying, "This is part of me, and I will not hide from it." It is the act of shining light on the darkness, and in doing so, removing its power. Resistance keeps us trapped, acceptance sets us free, so the next time a difficult feeling rises within you, do not push it away. Ask what it is trying to tell you. The next time a painful pattern repeats in your life, do not assume you are cursed. Ask what lesson remains unlearned. The moment you stop resisting is the moment you begin transforming. What we resist persists because life refuses to let us remain incomplete. The shadow will not vanish simply because you ignore it. It waits patiently for the day you are ready to look at it, and until then, it will keep returning in different forms. This is not a curse. It is an act of grace. For within the very things you resist lies the key to your growth, your strength, and your freedom. The choice is always yours. You can continue resisting, and the same struggles will follow you like a shadow, or you can face them, embrace them, and finally step into the fullness of who you are meant to be. In that moment, the persistence ends, and what once was a burden becomes the path to your transformation. There is a quiet strength that comes not from conquering the world, but from turning inward and saying with honesty, "This is who I am." That strength is born the moment you choose acknowledgement over denial. We often believe that power lies in control, controlling our thoughts, controlling our emotions, controlling how others see us. But true power does not come from control. It comes from acknowledgement. For what you refuse to see rules you, and what you acknowledge, you transform. Every hidden part of yourself waits for recognition. The anger you bury, the fears you silence, the insecurities you mask, each of them remains alive within you, influencing your life from the shadows. You may pretend they are not there, but they show themselves in subtle ways, in the arguments you repeat, in the choices you regret, in the feelings that surface when you least expect them. Denial blinds you to their influence. Acknowledgement opens your eyes. To acknowledge something is not the same as approving of it. It does not mean you give in to your anger, indulge your fear, or let insecurity lead your life. Acknowledgement simply means telling the truth. Yes, this lives in me. And that simple act of honesty shifts the balance of power. What was once an unseen master becomes something you can face, work with, and eventually transform. Many people spend their entire lives running from themselves. They construct an image of who they believe they should be and pour endless energy into maintaining it. But beneath the surface, another story runs. A story of emotions unspoken, wounds unhealed, desires unexplored. The greater the gap between the image you project and the truth you hide, the heavier the burden becomes. To acknowledge yourself is to lay that burden down. It is to step out of pretense and into authenticity. And authenticity is freedom. Think of the courage it takes to admit fear. Most people deny it, claiming confidence when their hearts tremble. But the moment you say, "I am afraid," you reclaim your strength. Fear no longer hides in the dark, shaping your life from the background. It is now in the open, where you can examine it, understand it, and move through it. That is the power of acknowledgement. It transforms the unknown into the known, the unconscious into the conscious. And only the conscious can be changed. The same is true for anger. When denied, anger poisons relationships, leaks into conversations, and erupts unexpectedly. But when you acknowledge it, when you admit, "Yes, I am angry," you create the possibility of channeling that energy. Anger can become passion, drive, or determination once it is recognized. Without acknowledgement, it is destructive. With acknowledgement, it becomes constructive. Even envy, a feeling often buried in shame, holds wisdom. To admit envy is to admit desire. It shows you what you long for, what you see in others that reflects your own unlived potential. By acknowledging envy, you uncover a map of your hidden dreams. But if you deny it, it festers into resentment, bitterness, and blame. Acknowledgement unlocks its message. This principle extends beyond emotions into every area of life. A person who refuses to acknowledge their weaknesses remains trapped by them. A person who acknowledges them gains the power to grow. A leader who acknowledges mistakes earns trust and respect. A leader who denies mistakes loses credibility. In every case, acknowledgement is not weakness. It is the beginning of wisdom. The paradox is clear. What you hide controls you, and what you face frees you. When you hide, you live as a prisoner to your shadow. When you acknowledge, you reclaim your life. This is why acknowledgement is not a small gesture. It is an act of profound strength. It is the foundation upon which transformation is built. There is a deeper reason acknowledgement is so powerful. Human beings long for wholeness, and wholeness cannot exist without integration. If you cut away the parts of yourself you do not like, you live fractured, incomplete. To acknowledge those parts is to bring them back into the circle of your being. It is an act of healing, of remembering, of becoming whole again. And when you are whole, you are unshakable, because nothing within you remains hidden, nothing remains unclaimed. This is not an easy path. To acknowledge yourself fully requires courage, honesty, and humility. It requires you to look at the sides of yourself you would rather avoid. But every step toward acknowledgement is a step toward freedom. Each time you speak the truth about who you are, you loosen the chains of denial. Each time you face the reality of your shadow, you gain power over it. The journey begins with simple words. Yes, this is me. Yes, I have anger. Yes, I feel fear. Yes, I struggle with envy, doubt, insecurity. Yes, I carry dreams I have not lived and wounds I have not healed. When you say yes, you do not collapse into weakness. You rise into strength. You stand in truth, and truth, no matter how uncomfortable, always carries within it the seed of transformation. So let acknowledgement become your power. Stop running from yourself. Stop pretending to be flawless. Stop hiding what is already part of you. Shine light into the corners of your being and watch how what once seemed like an enemy becomes a teacher. Watch how your fear guides you toward courage, your anger toward purpose, your envy toward aspiration. All of this becomes possible the moment you choose honesty. In the end, acknowledgement is the doorway to liberation. Denial locks you in a cycle of repetition. Resistance drains you, but acknowledgement opens the way forward. It allows you to live authentically, grow intentionally, and transform continuously. When you acknowledge who you are, fully and without disguise, you reclaim your power, and that power is the foundation of true freedom, true strength, and true wholeness. Within every human being lies energy waiting to be transformed. The qualities we try to suppress, the emotions we push away, and the impulses we fear are not simply obstacles to be destroyed. They are raw materials waiting to be shaped. Transformation begins the moment we choose not to deny these parts of ourselves, but to integrate them. Integration is not about erasing darkness or silencing discomfort. It is about weaving them into the fabric of who we are until they serve our growth instead of limiting it. Every emotion holds power. Anger, for example, is often seen only as destructive, something to be controlled or avoided. But anger carries with it intensity, energy, and focus. When denied, it lashes out recklessly or poisons relationships. But when integrated, anger becomes determination, the fire that fuels action against injustice, the passion that drives a person to defend their values. By integrating anger, it no longer owns you, you own it. What once threatened to consume you now becomes a source of strength. Fear works in the same way. Left unacknowledged, fear paralyzes. It makes us avoid risks, silence our voice, and shrink from life. But when fear is integrated, it becomes a guide. It sharpens your senses, reminding you of the risks that matter and teaching you to move with awareness rather than recklessness. Fear shows you where courage is needed, and courage cannot exist without it. To integrate fear is to turn paralysis into clarity, anxiety into wisdom. Even envy, a feeling we are often ashamed of, carries hidden potential. Envy points towards something we secretly long for but have not yet claimed. When denied, it becomes bitterness, resentment, and self-pity. But when integrated, envy becomes aspiration. It reveals the life you dream of living, the qualities you admire in others, and the goals you have not yet pursued. By transforming envy into inspiration, you turn comparison into motivation and longing into action. Integration is not about pretending these emotions are pleasant. It is about recognizing that they contain energy, and energy can be redirected. The shadow is not an enemy to be slain, but a teacher to be understood. Every dark impulse is a signpost, every painful feeling a messenger. The moment you stop resisting them and begin to listen, you unlock the possibility of transformation. This process is like alchemy, the ancient art of turning base metals into gold. The alchemists believed that hidden within the most ordinary, impure materials was the potential for great value. In the same way, hidden within your anger, fear, envy, and doubt lies the gold of your becoming. But to find it, you must not cast these parts away. You must integrate them into your life. Transformation through integration is the psychological alchemy that turns your shadow into your strength. Many people live divided within themselves. They cling only to what they consider good, and disown what they consider bad. But this division keeps them incomplete. They are like a bird trying to fly with one wing. Integration brings wholeness. Wholeness brings balance, and balance brings freedom. When you integrate your shadow, you stop living at war with yourself. The energy once wasted in denial is reclaimed for growth. The conflict between light and dark becomes harmony. This is not easy work. To integrate the shadow, you must first face it. You must admit that within you exists anger, jealousy, fear, selfishness, and pride. But also within you exists love, courage, creativity, and compassion. Integration does not erase either side, it unites them. It is the act of standing in the middle of your contradictions and saying, "All of this is me," and from that acceptance, transformation begins. Think of the greatest leaders, artists, and visionaries in history. They were not perfect saints untouched by struggle. They were people who integrated their shadow, channeling their intensity into creation, their pain into art, their fear into vision, their anger into justice. What made them powerful was not the absence of shadow, but their ability to transform it. They did not waste their lives pretending to be flawless. They turned their flaws into fuel. This is available to you as well. Every time you feel an emotion you dislike, ask yourself, what energy does this hold? How can I integrate it instead of fighting it? When you feel anger, look for the value you are trying to defend. When you feel fear, ask what wisdom it is trying to show you. When you feel envy, recognize the dream it points toward. Integration is the art of listening deeply to yourself, and then transforming what you hear into strength. The beauty of integration is that it makes you whole. Without it, you are split. One part of you chasing light, another part hiding darkness. With it, you are unified, complete, unafraid of who you are. This wholeness gives you resilience, because nothing within you is foreign anymore. There is no hidden part waiting to sabotage you. There is only you, light and shadow, working together, guiding you toward growth. Transformation through integration is not the work of a single day. It is a lifelong journey. But every step on this path makes you more authentic, more powerful, and more free. Each time you take back a piece of yourself that you once denied, you expand. Each time you transform darkness into light, you rise. So do not reject your shadow. Do not fear your flaws. Do not waste your life running from the very energy that can set you free. Instead, integrate it, transform it, make it yours. For in the end, the measure of your strength is not in how well you hide your darkness, but in how courageously you use it to fuel your light. Life gives us many teachers, books, mentors, experiences, but one of the greatest teachers we will ever have lives inside us. It is the shadow, the part of ourselves we are often most afraid to face. The shadow is uncomfortable because it reveals truths we would rather not admit. Our fears, our anger, our envy, our selfishness. Yet it is precisely this discomfort that makes it such a powerful guide. Where the shadow lies, there lies the lesson. To treat the shadow as a teacher is to step into a journey of self-discovery that no classroom, no lecture, and no textbook can ever replace. The shadow teaches us by showing us what we resist. Every time we notice ourselves becoming defensive, irritated, or judgmental, it is the shadow at work, pointing to something we have not yet accepted within ourselves. If you are quick to criticize others for arrogance, it may be that you have not yet confronted your own pride. If you are angered by someone else's freedom, it may be because you have denied your own longing to live more freely. What we notice most intensely in others often reveals what we have yet to face in ourselves. This is the shadow's way of teaching. It reflects our inner world onto the outer one, giving us countless opportunities to learn if we are willing to pay attention. The shadow also teaches us through repetition. The same challenges, the same emotional triggers, the same patterns appear in our lives again and again. It is not because life is cruel, but because life is trying to show us what we have not yet integrated. When a certain type of conflict continues to follow you, the shadow is presenting the same lesson until you are ready to learn it. Just as a teacher will not move you forward until you have understood the basics, the shadow will not stop repeating a lesson until you finally face it. There is great wisdom hidden in our most difficult emotions. Fear teaches us where courage is needed. Anger teaches us what we value and what boundaries we must protect. Envy teaches us what we secretly desire but have not pursued. Sadness teaches us what we have loved and lost, and therefore what truly matters to us. Every painful feeling is also a message, a lesson wrapped in discomfort. The shadow teaches by bringing these lessons to the surface, sometimes gently, often forcefully, until we acknowledge them. To view the shadow as a teacher requires humility. It is easy to see ourselves only in terms of our strengths, our kindness, our intelligence, our successes. But the shadow demands that we also see the parts we would rather hide. This humility is not weakness, it is wisdom, for only the humble can learn, and only the honest can grow. To admit, yes, I carry anger, yes, I struggle with fear, yes, I have desires I am ashamed of, is to open the door to transformation. Without this acknowledgement, the lesson remains hidden, and the shadow continues to rule from the dark. The shadow also teaches us compassion. When you realize that within you lives the capacity for anger, envy, pride, and fear, you stop judging others so harshly for their struggles. You recognize that they too are fighting battles with their own shadows. This recognition softens the heart. It allows us to meet others not with condemnation but with understanding. The more you learn from your own shadow, the more patient, forgiving, and empathetic you become. The shadow, then, does not only teach you about yourself, it teaches you how to love others more fully. Another lesson of the shadow is authenticity. As long as you deny your hidden parts, you live in a mask, presenting only fragments of yourself to the world. But the shadow pushes you toward honesty. It demands that you face who you truly are, light and dark together. This authenticity is liberating. You no longer have to waste energy pretending or hiding. You can show up as your whole self, imperfect but real. In doing so, you attract deeper relationships, truer connections, and a life that reflects who you are at the core. The shadow is also a teacher of strength. It forces you into the very places you least want to go. It pushes you to face your fears, to admit your flaws, to confront your pain. This is not easy work, but it is the work that builds resilience. Every time you face the shadow, you grow stronger. Every lesson learned from it becomes part of your inner foundation, a foundation no external force can shake. Through the shadow, you discover the kind of strength that cannot be faked, the kind that comes only from walking through darkness and finding your own light. Perhaps the greatest lesson the shadow offers is wholeness. It shows you that you are not just your virtues, not just your successes, not just the parts of yourself you are proud of. You are also your flaws, your failures, your fears. To be whole is to hold both sides together. The shadow teaches that you do not need to cut pieces of yourself away to be worthy. You are already worthy when you stand fully as you are, light and shadow united. The shadow may not be a gentle teacher, but it is an honest one. It will not flatter you or comfort you with illusions. It will confront you with truths you would rather avoid, and in doing so, it will give you the chance to grow beyond what you thought possible. To walk with the shadow is to walk the path of self-discovery, self-acceptance, and ultimately, self-mastery. So the next time your shadow rises, do not run from it. Ask what it is trying to teach you. When fear grips you, ask what courage it is calling you to find. When anger burns, ask what value it is asking you to defend. When envy stings, ask what dream it is urging you to pursue. In every shadow lies a lesson. In every lesson lies the possibility of growth. And in that growth lies the fullness of who you are meant to become. Human beings are constantly torn between opposite, light and dark, strength and weakness, joy and sorrow, hope and despair. Within each of us lives this polarity, and much of our struggle comes from trying to embrace one side while denying the other. We cling to what feels noble, acceptable, and beautiful, while rejecting the parts of ourselves that feel flawed, messy, or uncomfortable. Yet real freedom and real peace do not come from clinging to one side of the spectrum. They come from balance. Wholeness comes from embracing both light and shadow, strength and vulnerability, the parts we celebrate and the parts we hide. Wholeness is not perfection. Perfection is an illusion built on denial and avoidance, the desperate attempt to show only one face to the world. Wholeness, however, is the courage to embrace contradiction. It is the strength to admit, I am both strong and fragile, both wise and foolish, both kind and selfish. To live in balance is to live truthfully, to stop splitting yourself into pieces, and instead accept the fullness of your being. When we reject the parts of ourselves we do not like, we create an internal war. One side of us is always trying to defeat the other. Our ambition tries to silence our fear. Our kindness tries to cover our anger. Our confidence tries to crush our insecurity. But this inner battle never ends, because the rejected parts do not disappear. They simply wait for their moment to surface, often in ways that disrupt our lives. Balance begins the moment we stop fighting ourselves. Balance is the act of saying, "These opposites live within me, and both have their place." Think of day and night. We do not condemn the darkness of night or worship the light of day as superior. We understand that both are necessary. The cycle of life depends on both. In the same way, the human soul requires both light and shadow. Without darkness, light loses its meaning. Without struggle, strength cannot be born. Without sorrow, joy cannot be appreciated. It is the balance between these opposites that creates depth, beauty, and wholeness in our lives. Balance does not mean indulging every impulse or acting out every shadow. It means recognizing that each part of you has something to contribute. Anger may reveal where boundaries need to be set. Fear may reveal where courage is needed. Sadness may reveal what truly matters to you. Joy reminds you of the richness of life. None of these emotions alone makes you whole, but together they create the full picture of your humanity. To deny any of them is to live incomplete. Many people exhaust themselves chasing only one side of life. They chase success while denying their failures. They cling to happiness while refusing to admit their pain. They pursue strength while hiding their vulnerability. But balance means you no longer have to choose. You no longer have to pretend. You can be strong and still admit your weakness. You can succeed and still learn from failure. You can feel joy while honoring your sorrow. Wholeness comes when you stop dividing your life into acceptable and unacceptable parts, and instead learn to live with both. This balance brings authenticity. When you embrace both sides of yourself, you no longer wear masks. You stop pretending to be flawless, and you stop fearing that others will discover your flaws. You show up as you truly are, and in doing so, you allow others to do the same. Balance frees you from the exhausting burden of perfectionism, replacing it with the lightness of honesty. You no longer waste energy hiding. Instead, you invest your energy into living. Balance also creates resilience. When you live only on one side of yourself, you become fragile, easily broken when life challenges you. If you cling only to confidence, failure devastates you. If you cling only to joy, sorrow overwhelms you. If you cling only to strength, vulnerability humiliates you. But when you live in balance, you are prepared for whatever life brings. You understand that failure is part of growth, that sorrow deepens compassion, that vulnerability opens the door to intimacy. In balance, you are not destroyed by life's opposites. You are shaped by them. Wholeness through balance also deepens your connection with others. When you embrace your own shadow and your own contradictions, you become less judgmental of others. You see that everyone is carrying both light and darkness, strength and weakness. You meet people with compassion instead of criticism. Balance within yourself allows you to create balance in your relationships. It allows you to accept others as they are, because you have learned to accept yourself as you are. The path to wholeness is not about choosing one side over the other. It is about integration. It is about standing in the middle of your opposites and holding them together. This requires courage, because it means giving up the illusion of being only good, only strong, only confident. But it also brings freedom, because you no longer need to hide your humanity. You can live openly, honestly, and fully. Balance does not happen overnight. It is a practice, a continual process of noticing when you are clinging too tightly to one side and gently bringing yourself back to center. It is the practice of listening to every part of yourself with respect. It is the practice of allowing both your light and your shadow to teach you, guide you, and shape you. Over time, this practice creates a deep inner harmony that no external chaos can disturb. To be whole is to be balanced. To be balanced is to be human without shame. The light in you is beautiful, but so is the darkness. The joy in you is precious, but so is the sorrow. The strength in you is admirable, but so is the vulnerability. When you bring them all together, you discover a truth far greater than perfection, the truth of being whole. And in that wholeness, you will find peace, freedom, and the deepest kind of strength.